Vicente was a billionaire who had everything money could buy: a luxurious mansion, imported cars, power and respect. But in the face of his newborn baby's incessant crying, he found himself completely helpless. Renowned doctors, experienced nannies, and even the latest methods failed to bring peace to the child. The man who controlled empires couldn't control what mattered most in his life. Exhausted and desperate, Vicente began to believe nothing could calm his child, until fate brought him together with Helena, a poor but wise mother. With a simple gesture, a hug full of love, she made the impossible happen. And in that moment, Vicente realized that his greatest wealth wasn't in his fortune, but in the transformative power of simplicity and affection. Vicente watched the clock, feeling every second drag on through the endless night. His baby's crying echoed through the empty mansion, reverberating off its luxurious walls. He had tried everything: doctors, therapies, specialists. Nothing seemed to work. His wife, exhausted, tried once again to calm the baby, but frustration was evident on their faces. The baby cried non-stop, as if it knew the helplessness surrounding them. "Again, Vicente?" his wife asked, her voice shaky, exhausted. She got out of bed, determined to try once more, but Vicente's look said it all. He no longer knew what to do. Wealth, power and success were no longer enough to solve this little big problem. The newborn continued crying, and Vicente felt his anger rise. How could someone who had achieved so much feel so helpless? He had conquered the business world, amassed an incalculable fortune, but his child seemed to be the only thing he couldn't control. The baby's crying wouldn't stop, and he felt his patience drain away. He looked at his wife, equally exhausted, and felt guilty. He was a man used to solving problems, but now he found himself incapable of solving the most important one of all: being a present father. He knew something was wrong, but he didn't know where to look for the answer. His instinct told him something fundamental was missing. "Maybe a change of environment will help," his wife said, suggesting an idea that could be their last attempt. Vicente agreed without hesitation. They needed peace, away from the chaos of their usual life. They packed their bags, and with a sigh of relief, headed to a simple house in the countryside, hoping to find tranquility and a solution to what was happening with their child. The house in the countryside was simple, but it had an aura of tranquility that, for a moment, seemed to promise rest. The wooden walls and the fresh scent of nature contrasted with the cold modernity of their mansion. For Vicente, being away from luxury was disorienting. He missed his fast-paced life filled with commitments, but he knew that, at that moment, he needed something different. Nightfall came, and the tranquility they sought wasn't just in the environment but in the absence of the pressure that followed them in their usual routine. Despite the rest, the baby's crying still echoed in his mind. He couldn't switch off from the problem that haunted him. That's when he decided to go for a walk, seeking something that might help ease his burden. It was then that he saw her. Helena was sitting on a bench in the square, with her children around her, smiling in such a genuine way that she seemed completely in harmony with the world around her. She had an impressive calmness, something Vicente had never seen in his life of hustle and business. He approached hesitantly, driven by curiosity. "How do you manage to stay so serene with all these kids?" he asked without thinking. Helena looked at him with a peaceful smile, one that conveyed more wisdom than words could express. "Life's simplicity has its own rhythm, Vicente," she replied. "When we learn to follow that rhythm, everything becomes easier." Those words seemed profound to Vicente. He had always believed that life should be solved through technique and control, but what Helena was saying challenged all of that. Her serenity was so contrary to the lifestyle he had that, for the first time, he felt out of sync with the world around him. When he returned to the house, Vicente couldn't stop thinking about Helena's words. He reflected on his life, his pursuit of more and more, his obsession with control and luxury, which now seemed empty. Looking at his wife and child, He wondered if he was losing the most important thing. The sense of calm and presence he had seen in Helena began to take root in his mind. Vicente couldn't forget Helena's serenity. He knew the answer to what was happening with his son wasn't in expensive treatments or complicated formulas. What he saw in Helena was something simple, something that seemed to be missing from his life. He decided to seek her out again, not entirely sure what he was looking for, but feeling that she could help. "Helena, I need your help," Vicente said as she was with her children in the square. He was ready to try something new, something that didn't involve money or external solutions. He didn't know what else to do. "My son. He won't stop crying. I've tried everything and nothing works." Helena looked at him calmly. She knew her life was different from his, but she still believed that all parents, regardless of their situation, could learn the same basic principles. Sometimes, what they need isn't expensive methods. Sometimes, it's just a little love and patience. Vicente was skeptical, but something in the way Helena spoke gave him hope. He walked over to the bench where she was sitting and watched carefully. She took the baby in her arms, and with a serene smile, she gently rocked him. The song she sang seemed simple, but the effect was immediate. In just a few minutes, the baby stopped crying. Vicente fell silent, speechless. How could something so simple work? How was this possible? He looked at Helena, waiting for a more complex explanation, but she simply smiled and said, "Sometimes the answer isn't in grand solutions, but in the little things we give with our hearts." "This is impossible," Vicente murmured, still surprised. "I've tried everything and nothing worked. How can something so simple be the answer?" Helena looked at him kindly. "You're looking for solutions where they aren't. Your son needs you, Vicente. He needs your calm, your presence. Money can't replace that." In that moment, Vicente felt a wave of emotion that he didn't know how to handle. The idea that the solution to his child's crying was something so simple, so human, made his life look like it was in a new light. What he had always considered the right path, money, power, control, didn't have the answer to the love he sought to give his son. Vicente sat beside Helena, reflecting deeply. What else was he missing by chasing success, when what truly mattered was right there, in simplicity and a gesture of affection? In the following days, Vicente tried to apply what he had learned. He spent more time with his son, trying to be more patient and present. He tried to calm him with simple gestures, like those he had seen Helena make, but his attempts felt awkward and ineffective. Every time the baby cried, Vicente felt frustrated, as if the answer was always within reach, but he still couldn't grasp it. Tension increased in his house. His wife, though trying to understand his change in attitude, seemed uncomfortable. She didn't look favorably on the way Vicente was starting to question the luxurious, work-focused life they had built. They had talked about it before, but his wife wasn't convinced that the changes were really necessary. "Do you think money isn't important, Vicente?" his wife asked one night, visibly concerned. "We've worked for everything we have. We can't just abandon all of this." Vicente sighed and leaned back in his chair. He knew his wife was right, in a way. The life they had built together couldn't be discarded just like that. But at the same time, he felt there was something more in life, something he had never truly valued. He was beginning to question the real meaning of success. "I'm not abandoning anything, my dear," Vicente replied calmly. "But we need to understand that it's not just about money. What matters is the time we spend with our family. It's about being present, about teaching our son to grow up in an environment of love." His wife looked at him, still doubtful, but she knew there was something in his words that made sense. Vicente, for his part, felt he was on the right path, even though it was difficult and challenging. The fear of losing everything they had worked for weighed on his heart, but something inside him told him that this was just a necessary phase for a greater transformation. As he reflected on this, he remembered Helena's words, The answer is in the little things, in the care we offer, in unconditional love. The rest, that comes later. Vicente could no longer live between two worlds. On one side, there was the life he had always known: success, wealth, and control over everything. On the other, there was simple, genuine love, the patience Helena had shown him, and the need to be more present for his family. The decision he had to make wasn't easy, but he knew something had to change. "I can't keep living like this," Vicente thought as he looked at his son peacefully sleeping. He knew he needed to be more than just a financial provider. He needed to be a father, a husband, and above all, a complete human being. He didn't want his son to grow up without knowing the value of presence and unconditional love. The conversation with his wife was difficult. She was apprehensive, and he understood why. The life they had created was stable, comfortable, but Vicente knew that true happiness wasn't in more material accomplishments. It was time to transform his life. "I need to be more present. I need to change," Vicente said firmly, seeking an understanding look from his wife. She looked at him, unsure how to react. She wanted to believe him, but she was scared. Scared of losing comfort, of losing the life they knew. "But what about our life, Vicente? How will we live without all of this?" "I'm not asking to abandon everything," he replied. "But we need balance. I need to be more than the businessman you know. I need to be the father and husband who deserves my time and attention." His wife didn't know what to say at first. She felt lost, insecure. But looking at him, she noticed a change in his eyes, a sincerity she hadn't seen before. Maybe he was right, but the transition would be hard. For both of them. That night, Vicente made the decision. He would delegate responsibilities at his company, reduce his workload, and spend more time at home, connecting with his family. It was a big gamble, but he felt it was the necessary step for his personal transformation. The first weeks after Vicente's decision were challenging. He still felt torn between his old business life and the new path he was starting to walk. Although he had delegated many responsibilities, the pressure from the company still followed him, and the expectations of his performance didn't decrease. He began to question if he had made the right decision. There were moments when he was tempted to return to his old routine, to resume his old habits. Insecurity often arose, like a ghost, trying to convince him that he had made a mistake. But then, something changed. One evening, while sitting in his living room, watching his wife play with their son, Vicente had a moment of clarity. He realized that the value of what he was living now was much deeper than any financial success he had achieved. His son smiled at him, and his wife seemed more relaxed and happy, finally feeling Vicente's presence by her side. It was as if a new light had turned on in his life. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he felt that he had made the right choice. This realization became the turning point for Vicente. He understood that true success didn't come from money or power. It came from love, connection, and the time spent with the people who truly mattered. "I'm doing the right thing," Vicente thought as he stood up and walked over to his family. He kneeled next to his son and hugged him. For the first time, he felt that he was truly present. The next morning, Vicente spent the day with his wife and son. They went for a walk in the park, and he realized how the simple, peaceful life, although challenging, was much more fulfilling than any luxury he could have had in his previous life. Vicente's transformation was underway. He knew that the greatest challenge would be maintaining this balance between personal and professional life, but, in the end, he was willing to do whatever was necessary to find true happiness. Vicente was no longer the same man who once believed that money could solve everything. He now saw the world with new eyes, more attuned to the simple details and small joys of life. The mansion, the luxury cars, the million-dollar investments. All these possessions had lost their luster in the face of the peace he found when seeing his son smile in his arms. Over time, he realized that he could use his fortune differently. Instead of accumulating more, he decided to invest in social causes. He created projects to help vulnerable families, especially mothers like Helena, who, with so little, managed to teach so much about love and resilience. The transformation he was living was now starting to impact other lives. Helena became a great inspiration for Vicente. He would never forget the simplicity of the gesture that changed everything. A hug, a rock, a gentle song. It was this that made him realize that, despite all his possessions, there was something he lacked that no amount of money could buy. He began to visit the small town frequently, maintaining bonds of friendship and gratitude. His wife had also changed. If she had once been fearful and distrustful about Vicente's new choices, now she felt a part of this transformation. The time spent together brought them closer, and the marriage, which had shown signs of wear, flourished once again. Their son, once restless, now slept peacefully, surrounded by love and presence. Vicente looked to the past and wondered how he could have taken so long to realize the obvious. He remembered the sleepless nights, the frustration, the helplessness. But he understood that all of it had been necessary for him to learn the most valuable lesson of his life. True wealth is not in having, but in being. Over time, he began speaking at events, sharing his story with others who, like him, believed that success was only in the numbers of a bank account. His testimony inspired businesspeople, families, and young people to look at life from a different perspective. Many left transformed, reconsidering their own priorities. However, Vicente never saw himself as the hero. For him, the true heroine would always be Helena, the poor mother who showed him, without asking for anything in return, the power of a simple hug. "She's the one who taught me what it really means to be rich," he would say proudly whenever he had the chance. One day, while walking through the garden of his now simpler and more welcoming home than before, Vicente picked up his son and thought, "This is the greatest investment I've made in my life." The child's smile lit up his face, and he knew that he had found the true meaning of living. Vicente's life was different now. Lighter, more human. He continued to be a millionaire, but to him, that was no longer the most important thing. What truly mattered was the love he shared with his family and the positive impact he made in the world around him. Thus, the man who once couldn't calm his son's crying found the answer he had been searching for in simplicity. And he discovered that, in the end, the greatest wealth had always been within reach of his hands. Love. Reflecting on his journey, Vicente realized that the true transformation happened when he understood that real wealth wasn't measured in numbers or possessions, but in love and presence. He had spent his life looking for solutions in his fortune, but what really made the difference was the simplicity of a hug, the patience of a humble mother, and the power of being present for his family. His life was never the same again. Vicente now used his fortune to help other families, investing in causes that truly touched his heart. The transformation he experienced inspired many people around the world, showing that sometimes, life's greatest treasures are those that can't be bought. And you, have you thought about what really matters to you? If this story touched your heart, like this video, share it with your friends, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on other inspiring stories like this one. The true value of life lies in the simple things. And you, are you ready to transform your life too?